So any time that you are making a persuasive speech or trying to really convince your audience of something, it's important to have a clear and cohesive argument that builds logically. Anytime that you don't have that, the speech itself might not even make sense, but anytime you have a failure of argument, it's going to make you overall less persuasive. So a failure of argument can come about from all sorts of different reasons, including an unclear argument, an unsupported argument, an unethical argument, or an argument made on the wrong terms. Now, a specific type of a failure of argument, or a specific instance of this that we're going to talk about in depth, is a logical fallacy. Now, a logical fallacy is any argument that at face value seems like it's a strong argument. If you just look at it, it seems like it makes sense. But once you dig below the surface, you realize that some of those conclusions that are trying to be made don't actually make sense. Now, there's all sorts of different types of logical fallacies, but for the purposes of this class and just for the final exam, there's just a handful that you need to know about. So I'm going to run through each of those types and then give us an example of each one. Ad hominem fallacy. Well, of course his argument doesn't make sense, and his suggestion for gun control is a bad policy. He's an idiot and doesn't actually care about us. Bandwagon fallacy. Well, all sorts of other college campuses have their stadium located on the campus itself, so we obviously need to build one there too. Slippery slope fallacy. Well, if we allow our children to dress any way that they want at school, soon they're going to be wearing more and more outrageous clothing. They're going to start trying to outdress one another, trying to show each other up, and there's going to be increasingly wild behaviors inside and outside the classroom, and soon, as a result of this dress code, they're going to turn to violence as they try to outdo one another. What-about-ism. Sure, my college grades probably aren't as good as they should be, but what about the fact that my older sister didn't even go to college at all? False dilemma, either-or fallacy. Well, if the United States doesn't exert its power throughout Eastern Europe, nuclear war is the only inevitable outcome. False cause fallacy. After Colorado legalized marijuana, car accidents increased. Clearly, the new policy has made people more willing to drive under the influence and has caused more car accidents as a direct result. Hasty generalization. Every engineer is a jerk, and I would know because I dated one. Red herring fallacy. Yes, there's all sorts of prison reform issues that we could discuss here in the United States, but human rights abuses in other countries are far worse, so we should probably focus on that instead. Straw man fallacy. Let's say we have a parent that tells their child you aren't allowed to have dessert until you finish your vegetables. The child turns it around on the parent and says, "You only love me when I eat." Because the child is mischaracterizing the position of the parent, that's a straw man fallacy. Like I've said, there's so many other types of logical fallacies that are out there. They can be useful to know about just as you move forward, either in your scholarly career or in your professional career. But for the purposes of this class alone, these are the ones that you're going to really need to be familiar with for the final exam.